The FBI interviewed the Boston bomber in 2011, 2 years before the bombing. They investigated the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooter for 10 months before determining that he wasn't a threat. 2 of the 9/11 hijackers shared a hotel room with FBI informants before the attack. So this matters here because they don't do their job. It's human nature for individuals to want to take credit for wins and to try and avoid taking responsibility for losses. Oh, that's actually perfect. Wow. Fencing surrounds U.S. Capitol ahead of far-right rally. Here's the thing. I've been accused, along with Ben Shapiro, of being the gateway to white supremacy. Yeah. I don't know anybody who's going to this far-right rally. I don't know anyone who's talked about it at all. No. You guys, I want to hear from you. Comment. Do you know anyone who's going? Do any of you plan on attending? This is theater, right? Just like men menstruating, it's period kabuki theater. This is domestic violence kabuki theater.
Guys, I made sandwiches.
Yeah. This is what they go, look, FBI, we know what's going on. The FBI failed with the United States gymnasts. We're going to trust the FBI and CIA, though, telling us about this far-right violence, right? Well, here's the thing. Half those members, or 75% of the people attending, may be in the FBI, and I will explain to you why. Members of the USA Gymnastics, they testified. This is what you've seen. Senate, in the Senate, Larry Nassar's abuse. Michaela Maroney, I believe this was yesterday, had this to say, and it's still kind of ongoing.
After telling my entire story of abuse to the FBI in the summer of 2015, not only did the FBI not report my abuse, but when they eventually documented my report 17 months later, they made entirely false claims about what I said. Why are public servants whose job is to protect getting away with this? This is not justice. Enough is enough. Today, I ask you all to hear my voice. I ask you, please do all that is in your power to ensure that these individuals are held responsible and accountable for ignoring my initial report, for lying about my initial report, and for covering up for a child molester.
And this is the problem with the FBI. This is the problem with the CDC. This is the problem with Milley. You know what's required for there to be accountability? Is that girl to stand up against the system? Is this show to stand up against the system? Do you know what's required to keep your elected officials accountable? The ballot box, assuming it's not moving where you try and vote. And it goes, was this ballot box a droid? I can't. Oh, Republican ticket.
Oh, or some guy standing behind you has 80 million.
Right. And a guy standing before you has a beret and a billy club. That's really just they're blocking Nicki Minaj.
Yeah, who are you voting for? Trump, and then they just point you at a trash can. You're like, I'm sure. Is this where this goes?
Yeah,
that's where it is.
Put it in there.
It's new. 156 women. Let me rapid fire this so you guys get a full picture here. 2018, Nassar pled guilty to 10 counts of sexual abuse, and we can bring this back up there, Angela, so people can see it. He began working at Michigan State University in 1997. The FBI failed to report Maroney's testimony for 17 months.
Wow.
Okay, this is not a one-off. The Parkland shooter was reported to the FBI 5 months before the shooting. They failed to report the tip to the Miami Bureau. April 2021, FedEx shooter was interviewed by the FBI in 2020. The FBI interviewed the Boston bomber in 2011, 2 years before the bombing. They investigated the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooter for 10 months before determining that he wasn't a threat. 2 of the 9/11 hijackers shared a hotel room with FBI informants before the attack. So this matters here because they don't do their job.
Does F stand for fail?
I think it might.
But, I mean, the FBI didn't exactly have a clean record before this. And, again, you've delineated between the leadership of the FBI and good agents doing good field work.
They tried to get Martin Luther King to kill himself.
They did. Yeah. Yes. Well, I mean, allegedly.
Allegedly. Right? This is something. So remember BuzzFeed reported that Whitmer, right? There was a kidnapping plot. That was a big thing. Well, look, there were 14 militia members charged. There were 12 FBI informants. That means that almost half of the people involved, until the FBI came in, it was a drinking buddy club. At what point? There's a difference between, like when we went into Antifa, it was just me and one producer and a dozen Antifa members who handed him, accidentally, an ice pick, a knife, and said, hold on, let me go get my sawed-off shotgun. And I remember calling Ben Shapiro. Didn't expect this to happen. In Utah, being like, they gave him an axe pick. Oh, my word. And then all of a sudden, the security just flexed forward. And they had no interest, by the way, a lot of the cops. There was one person at the FBI who cared, and I don't know what I'm allowed to talk about. It didn't really go as far as we would have liked. So 12 FBI informants versus 14 militia members charged. Let's look at the case filings. After militia member Adam Fox, he questioned the value of harming Whitmer, right? So this is the non-FBI, like, I don't really want to harm Whitmer. We want to do things like protest, maybe scare her, cut her.
No, kidnap her.
Yeah.
That's what, come on, guys, right?
The FBI informant, Big Dan, told him to shoot around through the cottage window.
Who looked a lot like Dan Connor.
Did he? Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Effing place up north, send an effing round through the window. This is, of course, that you hear in a call. Big Dan, FBI was the one. So when you look at the evidence, it's the FBI informants who are the ones suggesting violence. Or the other people are like, I don't know, we just want to drink Stroh's. It's fire brewed. All beer is fire brewed. Don't be fooled by the marketing. Big Dan encouraged Fox to coordinate with militia members in other states. Here's all the sources available at loudofcutter.com. He said, engage in a synchronized attack on governors in multiple states by all shooting rounds into the homes of the respective governors at the same time. He suggested that the militia could detonate a binary explosive placed against Whitmer's cottage. This is all coming from the FBI. The 12 FBI members versus 14 militia members. Read up on the case. This is what happened. The news says, there were these radical far-right militia members who were trying to shoot Whitmer. And then they don't cover, actually, later on, it was the FBI was saying shoot Whitmer. The other guys were just like, that seems a little bit extreme.
Well, and they're fighting tooth and nail right now so that the transcripts of all the phone calls won't get out because you can't legally coax somebody into committing a crime.
Right.
That's crossing the line.
This is also important with the last Capitol, the investigation in January 6th. This is something people need to understand. Republicans, and certainly I want an investigation. We want the investigation to also include the FBI and the Capitol Police.
Yeah.
Not just people who trespassed. Wrong to trespass. You don't hold people for months without due process for trespassing. We said an investigation, if we investigate all of it, because guess what? Too many times this has happened. As a matter of fact, the biggest Al-Qaeda plot in history is an example of this, and I'm going to get to it in a second. But this also happened with militia members in Virginia. Big Dan, look, he appears again. He told Special Agent Chambers via text that he intended to reach out to his target. Mission is to kill the governor specifically. To which Big Dan replied, that's on the first call. i.e. use drones or other means. Then the prosecution argued that the defense changed the meaning of these texts. This is their argument, writing, they did not let the exchange speak for themselves. They inserted a period after specifically entirely changing the meaning. The omitted context shows it was in fact a question because it was immediately followed by an answer. Okay, these are the people who say that you shouldn't have the right to defend your home and property because of militia. Because they ignore an apostrophe. Now grammar matters? Now syntax? No. Saying we should detonate it, and the response being like, detonate that shit. See, it was a question response. Yeah, but the response is the same as a question. That seems like just more of an agreement between two pieces of shit at the FBI.
This is like if Whitey Bulger was the agent.
Right.
As opposed to the informant.
They also claim that this couldn't be evidence of entrapment. Why? This was the argument from the FBI, right? Because they never charged anyone with violence. You may not know that. The charge was kidnapping. It wasn't to attempt murder. It was kidnapping because even when the cameras aren't rolling, the FBI has to admit, really, the only calls to shoot and lay pipe bombs were from our guys. The most we can get them with is kidnapping. Just like, really, at the Capitol riot, the only person who shot was Capitol Police, who actually ducked out from his cover to shoot an unarmed lady with a clear line of view, seeing that she was unarmed. So we really can only hit them with trespassing. But you probably don't believe that because you haven't heard the follow-up. That's what the problem is. They go, oh, look, trying to shoot and blow up the governor. You don't hear the follow-up unless you watch shows like this. AOC, they screamed they were going to rape her. She wasn't even in the building.
Yeah.
She might not have even been in the same region as the Liberty City 7.
Yeah.
FBI informants, they basically manipulated 7 black men, which I'm only saying it because it's relevant to them, into pledging allegiance to Al-Qaeda. They coached them into committing crimes that they never intended to commit until the FBI showed up.
Wow.
And when you look at the transcripts and you look at the pressure, like we just saw with Whitmer, like, how about bullets through the window? I don't want to do that. How about pipe bomb near the cottage? I don't really want to do that. How about you fire shots into the air near the cottage? I don't really want to. I'm not really a gun guy. I'm more of a drink beer rowboat guy and show up with a protest. So it was suggested that this was the largest Al-Qaeda plot ever busted by the FBI. This is what you were told. It was a total hoax. You just need to look in. I don't want to say total hoax. They had people who were impressionable. And this can happen where you have someone let's say you have someone who's ready to protest. Okay? Let's say, for example, you have someone on January 6th. The vast majority of people, hundreds of thousands, are there to protest because they believe that there have, at some point in American history, been some, let's just say this. They believed the big lie that was pushed by Elizabeth Warren, by Hillary Clinton, by Jimmy Carter, by Amy Klobuchar, right? They believed that big lie that election integrity was a problem. They believed the big lie by the Democrats. So let's just say
2018 big lie.
Yeah.
Pre.
Yeah. 2016.
Well,
and 18.
Yeah.
Basically always until 2020.
Well, yeah.
Big lie from Democrats. So they believe the big lie from all the Democrats, Bernie Sanders too. They believe the big lie from the Democrats, and that's why they showed up on January 6th. And then you have a few people who are influenced and they go, oh yeah, no, you're just here to protest. We're just here to protest. Here's a fire extinguisher. Hey, maybe I'll throw out a smoke bomb. The point is you take people who are impressionable and then you feed them false information, and then they blame Donald Trump for division. Something else, too. You know what else happened when we broadcast? And people may not know this. You can go and watch. We broadcast live for people now we know we have a lot of new fans. From Chaz, it was Chop, then Chaz.
Chaz, then Chop.
Yeah,
then we got very serious about that.
Right. And we rented out Raz Simone's Airbnb, as
we did.
Black Lives Matter warlords do. And we declared it New Chaz. And broadcast from there live, which was hysterical, and Chaz was really mad about it because we're not the FBI. We can't arrest them, so we figure we can piss them off a little bit. Yeah. The John Brown Gun Club exists there, and they chased, just so you guys know, this is when the night turned. Black Garrett, you were there. They chased you out with guns.
There were guys following us in Chaz, and they were supposedly heading to the apartment where Brendan was.
No, not supposedly. That's what they said. Well, that's what they said. We don't need to say allegedly. They said they were heading there.
They were on the way.
We, unlike the FBI, we were able to intercept their direct correspondence, not only on Twitter, but I won't give you all of the details and the tools that we have at our disposal. But this is an official group, the John Brown Gun Club, who commits acts of violence and plan them, stage them on a regular basis. The FBI, as far as I know, hasn't claimed victory. They're right there. They're right there. You don't need to send someone in and say, hey, maybe you guys should get guns to shoot the governor. They're a gun club, and they plan on shooting people. So this is the John Brown Gun Club attempting to violently attack our producers who are doing a goof.
Wow. So, Black Garrett, where are you now?
Looks like Bel Air.
He's running.
I'm trying to reposition.
Something's going on. Hey, change your...
They're on our tail, man. I'm honestly speechless at the moment. There's somebody yelling.
Okay, all right, let's let him go for a little bit. Let him get to safety. Let's see. Brendan, what is going on in New Chaz?
We're leaving New Chaz. Some new developments are in place that are saying that Raz doesn't really want us in his apartment.
Well, hold on a second. Why does he not want... Can you call Raz for us? Can you get him on the phone?
I might be able to call him if you check back with me in a couple minutes.
Okay, let's call him from the car. We'll check back. That is the face of death.
That was me keeping up appearances. I was very scared.
We were very worried.
We're
like, oh no.
Yeah. You might notice when you go back and watch that show, there are some very long shots of just me at the desk because my half Asian lawyer, Bill Richmond, and Gerald are going, like, what's going on?
Yeah. Trying to figure out what's going on.
Is everyone alive?
Okay?
Yeah.
We made it.
Nothing from the FBI. Keep in mind, too, when they talk about the Capitol riots, and right now they're talking about what's going on. It's okay, we don't need to bring it up. People see. Talking about another riot that may happen, insurrection, right? Talking about a few people who trespassed. Okay, what about, again, we're all saying the same thing in different reactions. What about the fact that Americans, hundreds of millions of Americans, watch their cities burn? At least $2 billion in property damages because they haven't updated the number. I'm willing to bet it's probably $4 billion. At least 1,000 officer casualties. Dozens of people dead. This happened during the Summer of Love across the country. How many investigations? How many charges comparatively? I know there have been some, but did they infiltrate all of these groups?
Yeah.
They didn't really need to, because you don't need to go into the Black Lives Matter riots or Antifa and be like, let's shoot people. Like, 2 steps ahead of you.
We've already done that. You weren't with us a block ago, were you, right?
Now, the reason, though, the FBI does this, think about this for a second, right? They state the biggest Al-Qaeda plot that was foiled. Well, that was a hoax.
Yeah.
When you look at the Governor Whitmer, that was how long did that run on the news? We did a rally
all the time
to protest the nursing home deaths, just a Freedom from Information request. Thousands of people had a professional head counter. The only story with a couple hundred people show up in a protest. Why? Because it was entirely peaceful. But they spent, it was like a morphine drip on a loop in the news. It's a lot easier for you, when you're the FBI, to stage events and say, look how successful we are. It's a lot easier to go to your superiors, right, and say, look what we created and we stopped. Because you're bringing them, look, it's like a dog bringing them a bird. Look what we did, as opposed to, all of these other missed opportunities where someone would have to go to their superior and take accountability for failure. Is it easier for them to say, look, we stopped Al-Qaeda, than it is for someone in the FBI to go to a superior and say, okay, $2 billion in damages and over 1,000 officer casualties across the country, dozens of deaths. That really got away from us. This is just, it's not that difficult. And I think that people need to understand as conservatives, when you look at these problems, understand human nature. People are selfish. And when you have these giant bureaucratic wings of government, they're designed around a socialist utopia, that everyone is inherently good, right? It doesn't take into account that people who are individuals want to go to their boss and say, I did a good job. And it's a lot easier to say that if you've staged something than it is to actually do your job and monitor what is happening across the country, because that's random. That's difficult. I know this because we've intercepted these communications accidentally. And there were people at the FBI saying, how'd you do that? How did you end up with a knife in your hand from Antifa? How'd you end up finding the sawed-off shotguns in their trunk that they were planning for Ben Shapiro? I'm like, I don't know. Shouldn't you guys be telling me? It's human nature for individuals to want to take credit for wins and to try and avoid taking responsibility for losses. That's why the stories you hear about are generally, I don't want to say fake, but they're pre-orchestrated and it's quintessential, right? Distraction.
Yeah.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.